going to encroach on the time that you considered your off-duty time a little bit more now. And we're going to talk specifically about one activity that you're engaging in 3 times a day that is often made a very important focus of this practice, and that is eating. I already this morning suggested to you that you be careful with your experiences throughout the day as you're moving your arms and your hands and your fingers, when you're doing things like showering, dressing, undressing, doing these normal activities that you have to do. Eating is often set aside to be talked about in a special way because there is so very much going on when we eat. There are a lot of things that we can attend to that are part of our eating experience that we so often just slight over. One can often eat a meal hardly even tasting it, often not even realizing how much they're eating or stuffing down. We tend to eat very mindlessly. So when the eating, of course, begins with when the work period, whether you're walking or whether you're at the question or answer, when the period before, say, lunch ends, or when the early morning sitting ends, when something ends and you know that it's about time for the meal, that's the next thing you're going to be doing, to be sensitive to that within us, which might just be pulling us forward. How is it different when I walk toward the cafeteria than when I'm walking somewhere else? What is going on in my being besides just the moving of my legs? And we can feel that little pull. Am I having thoughts about, gee, I hope they don't have cucumbers again, or gee, I hope they do have cucumbers again? Or is there an odor that we're smelling that we're either finding appealing or unappealing? What kind of smells are coming to us from the cafeteria? Is there an eagerness to eat in our mind, or is it just another duty, something we have to do right now? So we can watch our whole set, and actually working with the mind state parts of this we'll be talking about tomorrow morning. So you're there's the whole business of the serving, noticing what we're seeing, note seeing if the actual looking at the food is the most important thing that's going on, noting smelling if the smelling is, noting the movements that we make with our hands as we're serving ourselves our food, moving down the line. When we get into the actual sitting area, you're putting the tray down. This is a time where you might experiment with starting to go very slowly. You don't do that in the cafeteria line if there's 24 people behind you, because we take context into consideration also. But if we use this eating period to start moving very slowly and be aware of a lot that's going on with us, all the different motions that it takes just to get one forkful of food up to our mouth, the lifting and the sliding forward, the dropping, the scooping, the lifting, the moving. And don't forget things like opening, placing, closing, pulling, when you're pulling the fork out, lowering. Try to do one thing at a time. Many times we're chewing one mouthful of food and we're frantically spreading butter on a bun at the same time, and we're also eagerly wondering how fast the supplies back at the cafeteria line are going down in case there's something we've already decided we want seconds on before we've even finished what's in front of us. And all these things can be going on. If we do one thing at a time, the fork that has delivered the food to our mouth will be resting down on the table again before we start the process of chewing that mouthful of food. As we chew, we can note chewing, watch everything that's happening inside the mouth. You will be amazed. Something that you have done for some of you a very long lifetime, approximately 3 times a day, and I'll bet you don't have the remotest idea of everything that goes on inside your mouth when you're chewing a mouthful of food. It's absolutely amazing to see everything that's happening inside there. It's quite a revelation. If a burst of flavor grabs your awareness, note the tasting. Note the chewing again when you're chewing. Note the swallowing. See what it feels like when you're swallowing, to feel the food being swallowed. When you're completely finished with one mouthful of food, it's time to start that long task of getting to the second mouthful. If you're going to butter a bun, your mouth is empty, all the food swallowed, your other utensils on the table, and you're picking up the knife, picking up the bun, reaching over, slicing the butter, lifting it. Every little tiny action, one thing at a time, not all piled up on top of each other, so that you've gone through a whole meal without hardly even knowing what you've been doing. Eating meditation is a wonderful exercise in this practice. Needless to say, it will slow you down a lot. Mealtime will take a longer period of time. That's not necessarily bad. I mean, where do you have to go? What do you have to do anyway? You might as well sit in the cafeteria and take a little bit longer with your eating and pay attention very thoroughly, very carefully to what you're doing. The experience of fully, mindfully eating will likely leave you wanting to eat a little less. That's okay. Even if you eat less than you really need to maintain your body weight, you're not going to wither up into nothing and die in half a week. So that's no really big problem if that happens. We learn a lot of things. We learn a lot about our attitudes toward food, and you have 2 more meals that you'll be eating before we actually get into looking at these mind states more, but you'll learn a lot about your attitudes toward food, but you'll learn things about taste, texture of food, the whole process and experience of going through taking it in. On our first Silence and Awareness retreat, one woman came to me at the end of the retreat and she said, I realize I've been eating some foods that I absolutely hate when I really taste them. I've been eating them all my life and I've been thinking I wanted them, but when I really taste them, I realize I don't like these foods at all. There's probably a lot of food you've never really tasted. You'll learn what it tastes like. So you can start working with eating meditation with tonight's dinner and try to carry that through the rest of the retreat now. And it's just a one area that you can use for fine-grained, deeper attention to all of those in-between activities when we're not doing formal sitting and walking, but which are also a very important component of this practice. Some of you who have asked questions about integration already, asking questions about integration with life, which, by the way, we will talk about the last evening, choosing particular activities in our ordinary daily life that we will do with meticulous mindfulness. It can be washing dishes, it can be brushing our teeth, it can be cooking a meal, it can be eating a meal. That's one wonderful way to work with mindfulness out there in our ordinary daily life. So you might decide that working with eating in that way is something that you may choose to do once a day, once a week, after you leave the retreat. I also would urge you to experiment with some other things. There's certain set routine activities, the bare minimum to keep ourselves presentable and palatable to other people, that we go through doing every day, like brushing our teeth and taking our shower and doing such things. Play around with getting meticulous in the way you do some of these things. Meticulous care to all the little tiny movements that you're engaging in. And then the eating is just a prototype of what you can start doing with a lot of these others. Let's sit. Check to see that your shoulders are over your hip bones, that they're hanging loose and relaxed. That your head is erect, not slumped or hanging forward. Draw your awareness to the experience of the sensations where you watch the breath. and add the mental noting of in, out, or rising, falling. If you find yourself thinking, note thinking, see the thought die, return to the breath. If any sensory experience, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, or the wide range of experiences that we can experience in the body, motion, temperature, touch, if any of these experiences draws your awareness away from the breath, let your awareness rest in that experience, noting seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting for those four senses, and an appropriate word that describes the quality of the experience for a body sensation. When the experience ends, or if our mind wanders from it, return to the breath. If the experience continues, repeat the note every 5 to 10 seconds, and after a minute or two, return to the breath anyway. If you move during the sitting, try to catch, before you move, catch the awareness that you're going to and note the movement as it begins, feeling the sensations associated with it. Be aware. Be sure to attend to the bell when you hear it.